This show is part of One Place, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to today's Legal and Crime Roundup. We have a heavy slate to cover today, starting with a former NFL player who allegedly used ChatGPT as a legal advisor after killing his girlfriend. We'll also discuss an Indiana man accused of gunning down his father and stepfather during a domestic dispute, and a Florida mother sentenced to 60 years for the horrific torture of her 5-year-old son. Then, we look at a woman who reconciled with her boyfriend only to help him plot a murder 2 days later, and a mother who reached a plea deal after leaving her children in a burning house. We're also tracking federal charges against a man who threatened to assassinate Donald Trump and surveillance footage of a suspect buying fuses for an attempted bombing at the New York mayor's residence. Finally, we'll update you on the Laken Riley murder case, Fani Willis's latest loss in court, and the forensic evidence used to debunk an ex-athlete's claims of a slip-and-fall accident. Let's get into it.
Starting in Tennessee, where a former first-round NFL draft pick is facing some truly bizarre and disturbing allegations in court. Darren Lee, who was once a linebacker for the New York Jets, is currently facing charges of first-degree murder and tampering with evidence in the death of his girlfriend, Gabriella Perpetuo. What makes this case particularly modern and chilling is the evidence presented by District Attorney Cody Wamp. Prosecutors allege that after the killing, Lee didn't call 911 immediately. Instead, he turned to ChatGPT. The district attorney described it as Lee using the AI as a sort of digital defense attorney, asking the software for specific advice on how to cover up a crime scene and how to frame the situation to avoid police trouble.
The details of those chat logs are incredibly damning. According to the courtroom reports, Lee allegedly typed that his fiancée had done her crazy thing again and claimed her injuries were self-inflicted. He specifically asked the AI if a slip and fall could cause puncture wounds and how to explain away swollen eyes. He even told the AI she got blood all over the damn place. It's a terrifying look at how someone might try to use technology to manipulate a forensic narrative. The prosecution noted that these queries happened roughly 12 hours before he actually called emergency services. The judge has ruled there is enough evidence to move this to a grand jury.
Now let's shift to a tragic domestic situation in Indiana. In Greenville, Indiana, 23-year-old Easton Good is being held without bond after a night of escalating violence that ended with the deaths of both his father and his stepfather. The affidavit describes a chaotic scene where Good was found vomiting in his room early in the morning. After his mother and stepfather, Bradley Butler, helped him to bed, he allegedly became verbally aggressive. There was a physical struggle that seemed to resolve with a hug and an apology, but the peace was short-lived. Later, Good was found in a bathroom, naked from the waist down and covered in feces, which triggered another fight.
It's heartbreaking because the family was clearly trying to help him. The mother even called her ex-husband, Kelly Good, to come over and help sober Easton up. But when Kelly arrived with a friend, the situation turned lethal. Easton allegedly emerged from a bedroom with a .40 caliber handgun. He shot his father, Kelly, and then turned the gun on his stepfather, Bradley, killing both in front of his mother. She told police she was nearly struck herself, even showing investigators a bullet hole in her shirt. Easton was eventually arrested after a standoff where officers saw him running through the house naked. He's now facing 2 counts of murder.
Next up is a sentencing out of Florida that has shocked the local community. Taylor Schaefer, a 30-year-old mother, has been sentenced to 60 years in prison for her role in the systematic abuse and torture of her 5-year-old son, while her boyfriend, Sean Stone, is the one accused of the primary physical violence. The evidence against Schaefer was focused on her complicity and failure to act. Surveillance video from inside their home showed the young boy being handcuffed for 19 hours at a time, locked in a dog cage, and deprived of food. Perhaps most disturbing is that Schaefer reportedly saw the abuse on her own home security cameras and, in some instances, was present while it happened, yet failed to stop it or seek medical help for the boy's 46 visible injuries.
The medical reports in this case are difficult to even read. The child had a fractured skull and internal injuries. There were also 2 other children in the home who were victimized. One was allegedly forced to ingest boiling water. Sheriff Mike Chitwood didn't mince words, calling the abusers scumbags. Schaefer pleaded no contest to charges including aggravated child abuse and conspiracy. While the children are now in a safe environment, the trauma they endured is unimaginable. This 60-year sentence ensures she will be behind bars for the majority of her remaining life, while her boyfriend's case is still moving through the system.
Moving on to a case of a reconciliation that turned into a murder plot. In Lake County, Florida, 23-year-old Ariana Selena Gajraj has been sentenced to 3 years in prison, though she'll serve less than half of that due to time already served. The case involves a plot she hatched with her boyfriend Brandon Perella just 48 hours after they got back together following a breakup. Gajraj lured a male friend into her car under the guise of smoking marijuana and talking. While they were parked, her boyfriend showed up and fired over 20 rounds into the vehicle. Miraculously, the victim managed to drive away and escape without being hit, despite 13 bullets striking his car.
The digital trail in this case was extensive. Investigators found messages on a text app called Pinger, where Gajraj and Pirella explicitly discussed the plan to kill the victim. At one point, Pirella messaged her saying, "No, he's dying." Gajraj actually helped refine the plan, suggesting she receive a call from a blocked number to earn the victim's trust. While they were in the car, she even shared her live location with Pirella just 12 minutes before the shooting started. It's a chilling example of how quickly a toxic relationship can escalate into a coordinated attempt at taking a life. Pirella has already been found guilty and is awaiting his own sentencing.
Now let's look at a tragic fire in Indiana and the plea deal that followed. Kirsten Bowers, a 31-year-old mother, has agreed to a plea deal that will see her spend 16 years in prison. This stems from a June 2025 house fire that claimed the life of her 7-year-old son, David. Initially, Bowers told authorities she was smoking in bed and tried to save her 4 children, but investigators quickly found holes in her story. Surveillance footage and digital data showed that she had actually walked several blocks away from the home while it was burning, leaving the small children inside to fend for themselves. While 3 children managed to escape on their own, David was trapped and died at the scene.
The evidence of her state of mind before the fire was particularly damning. Neighbors reported hearing her scream, "I hope everything you love dies," at her husband just days earlier. When police arrived, they noticed she didn't smell like smoke and had no soot on her, which contradicted her story of trying to rescue the kids. Even more incriminating were her internet searches in the aftermath, where she looked up the sentences for manslaughter and reckless homicide in Indiana. Her own husband reportedly told police to arrest her as soon as he learned of the fire. This plea deal brings some level of closure, but it's a haunting case of neglect.
Next, we turn to a federal case involving threats against public officials. Jeffrey Scott Ham Jr., a 32-year-old from upstate New York, is in federal custody after allegedly making graphic threats to assassinate Donald Trump and ICE agents. Using the YouTube handle @JusticePeaceUnity, Ham allegedly posted a series of violent messages throughout January and February. These weren't just vague expressions of anger. He spoke about having 1,000 rounds of ammunition and having his scope on federal agents. He also specifically vowed to kill the president at the first chance he got. The FBI was alerted by Google and moved quickly to identify and arrest him in Binghamton.
The FBI's special agent in charge, Craig Tremoroli, emphasized that hiding behind a keyboard doesn't grant immunity for making dangerous threats of violence. During an interview with investigators, Ham reportedly admitted to owning the account and making the posts. Some of the messages were incredibly disturbing, detailing specific acts of torture he wanted to perform on the president. He's now facing up to 5 years in federal prison for making a threat using interstate commerce. It serves as a stark reminder that federal agencies take online threats against public officials and law enforcement with the utmost seriousness, especially in such a polarized political climate.
In another New York-related story, new video evidence has emerged in an attempted bombing case. Surveillance footage from a fireworks store in Pennsylvania appears to show 18-year-old Amir Balat purchasing safety fuses just 5 days before he allegedly threw improvised explosive devices at protesters outside the New York City mayor's residence. Balat and 19-year-old Ibrahim Kayumi are accused of driving from Bucks County to Gracie Mansion to target a protest. The video shows Balat buying a 20-foot roll of fuse for less than $7. The store's vice president noted that the purchase itself was uneventful and didn't raise any red flags at the time, but it has now become a central piece of the FBI's investigation into what they are treating as a potential act of terrorism.
The details of the devices themselves are quite frightening. They were reportedly made from sports drink bottles filled with explosive material, placed inside glass jars, and surrounded by nuts and bolts for fragmentation. According to the federal complaint, Balat claimed he was inspired by ISIS and even told police he wanted the attack to be even bigger than the Boston Marathon bombing. Fortunately, the first device he threw extinguished itself after hitting a barrier, and he was apprehended before a second device could do any damage. Both men are now facing 5 federal counts related to terrorism and explosives, with an indictment expected soon.
Now, an update on a high-profile murder conviction in Georgia. A judge has denied a motion for a new trial for Jose Ibarra, the man convicted of killing Laken Riley. Ibarra's defense team had argued that they weren't given enough time to properly analyze the DNA evidence, specifically the true allele DNA reporting used by the state. However, Judge H. Patrick Haggard was unmoved, stating that the evidence against Ibarra was overwhelming and powerful. The judge pointed out that the defense actually had months to consult with experts, and that their cross-examination during the trial showed they had a sufficient understanding of the technology. He also noted that the defense failed to call the original trial counsel as a witness during the appeal hearing.
This ruling effectively keeps Ibarra's life sentence without parole in place. The Laken Riley case has been a major point of national discussion, and this legal hurdle being cleared is a significant moment for the prosecution. The judge's opinion was quite firm, suggesting that the defense's claims of being hampered were not supported by the timeline of the case. Meanwhile, Laken Riley's father has filed a separate lawsuit against the Georgia University system for negligence. As for Ibarra, his options for further appeals are narrowing significantly after this comprehensive denial from the bench.
Shifting to another major legal battle in Georgia, this one involving the Fulton County DA. Fani Willis has lost another bid in court, this time regarding her attempt to intervene in a massive battle over legal fees. Following the dismissal of the racketeering case against Donald Trump and his co-defendants, the defense teams are now seeking nearly $17 million in recouped legal expenses. This is possible under a new Georgia law, SB 224, which allows defendants to seek monetary awards if a prosecutor is disqualified for improper conduct. Willis wanted to challenge the reasonableness of these fees, arguing that any award would come out of her office's budget and that she deserved a chance to be heard.
However, Judge Scott McAfee ruled that because Willis was wholly disqualified from the underlying case, she has no standing to inject herself into this ancillary matter. He noted that the prosecuting attorney's counsel and Fulton County itself will represent the state's interests. This is a significant financial blow and another symbolic defeat for the DA's office. Trump's lead attorney, Steve Sato, praised the ruling, calling the original case lawfare. We are now entering uncharted territory with this new law, and the upcoming bench trials to determine the exact amount of fees will be closely watched by legal experts across the country.
Finally, we're circling back to the Darren Lee case with some more specific forensic details. As the preliminary hearing for Darren Lee continued, the physical evidence in the home began to paint a very different picture than the slip-and-fall story Lee told 9/11. Investigators used a reagent called Blue Star, which detects blood even after it's been cleaned up. They found massive amounts of blood in the master bedroom, on the mattress, the pillows, and the floor, as well as in the shower and the kitchen sink. This directly contradicted Lee's claim that he simply found her unresponsive on the couch after she had supposedly fallen in the shower. The sheer volume of blood suggests a violent struggle that moved through multiple rooms of the house.
The medical examiner's findings were equally grim. Gabriela Perpetuo didn't just have a single injury. She had a 1-inch stab wound to her stomach, a large bruise on her head, heavy swelling around both eyes, and even a large bite mark on her shoulder. Lee himself had facial injuries and cuts on his hands when police arrived. This is where the ChatGPT evidence becomes so critical. When Lee asked about the swollen eyes, the AI actually told him that while a fall could cause that, it crossed into seek immediate help territory, not ice it. The fact that he waited 12 hours after receiving that advice to call for help is a central pillar of the prosecution's murder charge.
That's all the time we have for today's briefing. These cases continue to show the intersection of technology, domestic tragedy, and high-stakes legal maneuvering.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with more updates on these stories and other breaking legal news. Make sure to follow the show so you never miss a daily update. Until then, stay informed.